everybody. Welcome to the Straight Outta BS podcast. Thank you guys for your continued support. Really appreciate it. It really means a lot. Thanks to my Patreon members. Donations are never expected, so they're always super appreciated. So thank you to all of the people that have supported me in that way. Thank you to all the people that have joined my YouTube channel or anything like that, or sharing the videos or anything like that. It all helps the algorithm. So I want to thank you, and please continue to share the videos and leave comments and like the videos so we can spread the algorithm out farther and get more eyes on this situation. So I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with that. So on the count of three, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
I go by Gigi, but my name was Angela Webb, and I went to Casa by the Sea. I also went to High Impact briefly.
Okay. And walk us through your childhood and what led up to you being sent away.
So I was a child of military parents. I briefly spent time overseas. I was born in Germany, and then I lived with my mom in Brindisi, Italy until I was 5.5, 6. My sister passed away in a pretty bad accident. Then we came back to the United States. My mom kind of lost her mind a little bit. She was 9 months pregnant with my brother when my sister passed. She kind of passed us off for about a year while she tried to collect herself. She never really got it together after that. She stayed on with the military until I was in the 7th grade. But she really lost it after that. She became very abusive towards me, blamed me for my sister's death. She died on my horse. So that kind of stuck. Always blaming me, always abusive towards me after that, which is part of what led to me going to Casa. She was one of those Southern moms that believed in, you have to be perfect. You have to be that Southern belle. I did sports. I did cheerleading, ballet, figure skating, all of those things. But I was also a sick child, which frustrated her and didn't fit into her narrative. She liked to marry men for their money. And so having the sick child always around didn't fit that narrative for her. When I was 16, I lost my kidney. It exploded. And then when they took it out, I spent 2 weeks in the ICU. And I had previously been in a mental health ward, which she liked to stick me in those, of course, because she didn't want me around. So I had previously been in the mental health ward. I was living in San Antonio, Texas at the time. And they were just, she constantly told them I was crazy. I was always faking things. So they spent a week telling me I was crazy. There was nothing wrong with me. I was faking pain until one night the nurse was like, no, there's something seriously wrong with her. They put me in the hospital. Of course, my kidney had exploded inside my body. They took it out, spent all that time in the ICU. And then the night they took me back to the mental health ward, 2 bounty hunter looking people came in and said, your mom has decided to send you to a boarding school in California. Of course, the telltale you're going to boarding school nonsense. I was like, oh, I don't want to go. Just, let me out. I'm going to go back to living on the street, which I had previously been doing for about 2 years. I'd go to the street, cops would be called, they'd pick me up, they'd bring me home. A lot of us did that. I guess she got tired of having the cops called on her, so this was her solution. And so I told them, no, I'm not doing that. You can either keep me here or you can let me leave and I'll just go about my business, keep doing what I do. You know, even though I lived on the street, I still went to school. I still had straight A's. I still was doing what I was supposed to do as a human being. They didn't like that answer, so they hit me with the Holodoll, and I went night night. And I woke up in Mexico. I woke up with these ladies screaming at me in Spanish, and I didn't know Spanish. So, you know, of course, you know, I still have a huge gaping, basically, you know, hole. You know, it's stitched up, but, you know, it hasn't healed. I've still got stitches. I'm still supposed to be on heavy painkillers. I was cut basically from my belly button to my spine. They had to take a rib out because my kidney was, you know, the size of a New York strip steak when they pulled it out of me. And they're yelling at me to you know, change my outfit, which I didn't understand what they were saying, but they're, you know, throwing clothes at me, stripping me, you know, checking me to make sure I don't have anything. But of course, I had just come from a hospital, so they knew I didn't have anything. But you know, that's neither here nor there. But they finally got me changed, and then they bring me to, you know, the bunkhouse, because at that time, you know, they had the trailers. And they bring me into this trailer and point at a top bunk. Now, granted, I'm cut open yet with stitches, and they're pointing at this top bunk and telling me to get in it. Everybody in the room is sleeping. It's the middle of the night. So I climb up there in pain, not having a clue what's going on. And I think I laid there and cried for like 2-3 hours, and it was time to get up. Of course, they come in and getting everybody up. And I'm asking everybody what's going on in English, which, you know, you can't do in Casa. And nobody's really answering me. Nobody's telling me what's going on. They assign you a buddy to kind of walk you through what's going on, but there's only certain times they could talk to you. Wasn't very helpful. I lasted 2 days. And I wanted pain medicine, as I should. You know, I'm supposed to be on pain medicine. And I stood up in class on my second day and I yelled at the mama. I was like, somebody needs to give me medicine. I'm in pain. Somebody needs to explain to me what's going on, because I was told I was going to California. And then nobody speaking English. I didn't understand what was going on. I was very scared, you know, not understanding. Nobody would really explain this situation other than I was in Mexico. And I felt like I had been kidnapped and I didn't understand. So I yelled and I freaked out. And, you know, we lose memory of certain things. And I remember sitting there wanting to throw this TV. And I honestly, to this day, don't remember if I threw the TV or if I just wanted to throw the TV. But I know after yelling, I was taking a high impact. And that's where my high impact journey started.
So you only spent 2 days at Casa by the Sea?
Originally, I ended up going back.
Yeah.
But I was only there for 2 days before I earned that consequence for wanting medicine. I actually learned later, just recently actually, that because I came from a medical facility, that they could treat us differently. That because my parents didn't bring me, that I was able to be treated worse. I didn't know that till just recently. That's crazy to me. And that they had more information because I came from there. That they were given, you know, all of my medical records on my mental health. They were given more family history. They were given more everything because I came from a mental health facility. but they sent me to high impact. I went there at 110 pounds. I don't know if you've interviewed other high impact survivors.
A couple, yeah.
Yeah, that was rough. I was only there for 6 weeks, but in that 6-week time frame, I ended up leaving at 68 pounds. Miguel broke my leg. I ended up with so much infection that they thought I was going to die, and they ended up having to send me back without finishing my laps. Miguel thought I was going to die, so he sent me back to Casa. That was no fun. I ended up having to wear the bag of sand on me. I ended up in the dog cage, I think total of 2 times. The first time I was in there for 2 days, the second time 4 days. Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Okay. So how long? So you were there how long at high impact?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. What do you remember about when you first got to high impact?
I actually got there late in the day. I think I got there around dinner time. So I got there for the raw chicken and rice. That was interesting. That ended up actually being my favorite meal of the day because, the raw beans, or, the uncooked beans, that really hurt your stomach. And then the oatmeal, I could never eat it. That's what always got me in trouble. I ended up puking the oatmeal all the time. And then I wouldn't eat the vomit, of course, because, I'm stubborn. So that always got me cage time. And that's what actually ended up getting me the 40-pound bag of sand on my back that I had to carry everywhere.
So the dog cages were at high impact, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the second one you said?
I'm sorry.
You said the dog cages, and then what was the second thing you said?
The 40-pound bag of sand that you have to carry everywhere if you get really, really in trouble. You literally don't get to take it off unless you're in asleep. That's the only time it comes off of you. You have to carry it everywhere. You have to wear it when you're listening to the AA tapes. You have to wear it when you're going to the bathroom. You have to wear it when you're exercising. You have to wear it when you're running. You have to wear it when you're eating. You have it on your shoulders at all times. I think that's why I ended up losing so much weight so fast.
Okay. What was the worst thing that you witnessed or heard about at Casa by the Sea and then at high impact?
At Casa, I honestly I kept to myself a lot at Casa. I mean, the upper level treatment was pretty horrendous. Um, the medical treatment, of course, was horrendous. Perla was a not nice human being. I actually never made it past level 2 because I didn't care to advance. I couldn't do the seminars. Um, I think I only did the first seminar, maybe the second seminar. I couldn't do them. But I kept to myself. I did my schoolwork, and that was it. The 9/11 thing was rough. Girls were disappearing left and right after that. Couple people tried to run. And we all got pretty scared after that. But because I did high impact so quickly, I was terrified to go back. Terrified to go back. And I didn't even know high impact was even closed. Shortly after I was there, it ended up getting shut down, but I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that. So I was very quiet, kept to myself. I didn't try to advance. I didn't do any of that.
So you attempted discovery and focus, is that correct? Or was it orientation and discovery?
I think it was orientation and discovery. I don't think I ever made it to focus.
Okay, I think you would. Do you remember anything about having to do like some sort of, like, you had to dress up in a costume in front of a bunch of people and like
No, I didn't. I don't think I did.
Okay, then I don't think, then you
I
probably
remember
didn't focus.
I remember the towel thing, but I think that was the first one.
Yeah, the towel thing was present in all the seminars, so that's definitely a correlation between all of them. I think, except maybe orientation didn't have the towel thing. I can't really recall. I want to say that it did, but I can't 100% recall on that. I know discovery and focus did. Let's see. How long after you got to, when you were at Casa, did they, probably not because you were there for such a short time the first time you were there, but did they try and throw you into a seminar when you first got to Casa, or did you go through they didn't have seminars at High Impact, correct?
No, we had to listen to stupid Father Martin AA tapes every single day, twice a day.
Okay, so you
I
probably didn't.
haven't been able to ever do any kind of AA or NA or anything like that because of those tapes. It's a huge trigger for me.
I totally get that. Yeah, so you probably didn't witness or have to experience any seminars until you got back to Casa.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so how long after you got back did they put you through orientation then? If you had to make an estimation.
A while. When I got back, my leg was broken and the size of a watermelon. Whereas I look like I just came out of a concentration camp. So they kind of kept me hidden for a little bit. They didn't even put me back into a family for a couple weeks.
Interesting.
They kept me in the nurse's office basically with Perla and 2 upper levels. They kept me kind of away from everyone. I don't think they wanted people to see me like that. By the time I did come out, I still looked messed up.
Were they caring for your leg at all during that time?
They had it wrapped, but they didn't have me on crutches. They basically just kept me bedbound, and they were force feeding me, like, of course, the Sienna Swing Quinta. I had to have 100% for the rest of my stay until I left. And they would, sometimes everybody would be done eating and they'd leave, and I'd still be sitting there eating my food because they wouldn't let me up until I finished every single bite. And before I came to Casa, I was an anorexic bulimic. I always struggled with food. That was one of the things with my mom that I struggled with. Her perfect ideal of a human being had to be itty bitty teeny tiny. And so I always struggled with food, and they would not let me up unless I ate everything.
Okay. So maybe like 1 or 2 months after you got back?
I would say it was at least a month and a half before I had a seminar or orientation or anything.
Okay. And during that time, and how long did they have you separated from everybody? Was it just like 2 weeks or?
I think it was like 2.5 weeks, maybe 3, but it was a little bit.
Okay. And how did they reintegrate you in with people? Did they just kind of put you in a family? Did they kind of just like?
They threw me into merit.
Okay. At what point did you figure out that, like, or did you ever figure out like how to speak Spanish or any of that?
I mean, I did Spanish class. That I don't remember what his name was, but the Spanish teacher really, really helped me. My first language was Italian, so I picked it up fairly quickly. But those first 2 days, disoriented, in pain, not understanding what was happening to me, it really threw me. But once I, had been through everything else, it was like, okay, I really need to figure this out because I don't want to be sent back. I'm not doing that again. This isn't happening to me again. So I figured it out fairly quickly.
Okay, and then how long after you got back to Casa were you there? Like, how long?
So I was there from the summer of 2001 until like the fall of 2002.
Did 9/11 happen when you were in there?
Yeah.
Did they say anything about 9/11 at all?
Nope.
Nothing.
I remember when all of it went down. It was weird because like just out of nowhere, they had us come like sit in the courtyard. And it's weird because
Outside?
people know differently, but
Outside?
I remember sitting in the courtyard and we all had to just be quiet. And I remember, I don't remember who it was, but one of the guys that, one of the guys that ran the place came out and was like, listen, we're not really allowing phone calls right now. And when you do get your phone calls back, we are going to be monitoring a lot more closely. There's something going on back home and we can't let your parents talk about it. We don't want you scared, and it's really not something you need to worry about. And then girls just started disappearing. And then one of the parents leaked it. I remember one of the parents leaked it because one of the girls was talking about war. And I remember thinking, my mom had retired at that point, and me and my mom didn't get along at all. We never got along. But I remember thinking, I wonder if she's going to be forced to go back in. I wonder if she's going to bring me home so that I can take care of my brother. I'm hoping she's going to bring me back home, and I'm hoping they make her go back to war. Like, I know that's a really warped thought, but that was where my thought process went
Yeah.
because I know it got leaked. And then, like I said, the girls just started disappearing, like in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day. Like people just started disappearing.
Like getting pulled or just like vanishing like you didn't know where. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they were
Interesting.
getting pulled, but like it was super quiet.
Yeah, they didn't want the campus to know about it. Probably do it as quiet as possible type thing.
Yeah, and I remember the day I went home, like I stepped off the plane, and the first thing out of my brother's mouth was, "Do you know about Saddam Hussein?" And I'm like, "Who are you talking about?" He was like, "Do you know about the Twin Towers falling?" And I'm like, "Excuse me? Like, what do you mean? The Twin Towers, they can't just fall."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "No, like there's a whole war going on right now." And I'm like, "What do you like? Stop. Like, this is not what I need to hear right now. Like, you have no idea what I've just been through. Like, we're not talking about this." And like, that's all they wanted to talk about. And I ended up leaving that day because I was like, listen, we're not doing this.
I can't even imagine getting out and having to deal with fucking that. I mean, everybody had to come out and deal with their own traumas and tribulations, and I'm not gonna try and or sit here and compare like what was worse or easier. But definitely coming out and having to deal with 9/11, that's kind of a bitch, you know.
Yeah.
Because
It was,
everybody's talking about it. Everybody's fucking everybody. The news, like that's all they were talking about for like what, like a year and a half or some shit. Like,
I think I got out like right before the anniversary.
oh my god.
Like all over the news. And it was just like this is not what I need to deal with right now.
Yeah. So how was that? I definitely want to touch on some more stuff about Casa.
Yeah.
How was the food? I it was probably pretty shitty, but how was the food there? Was it horrible? I know it at High Impact, like it was barely edible. Was Casa bearable? Was it horrible? Was there
I
some
mean,
things?
so I grew up a pescatarian. So for me, like I really, really struggled with the food. I mean, like there was hot dogs. I still to this day don't eat hot dogs. That's not a thing for me. Hamburgers, like I remember the white spaghetti being like my favorite thing. I
Oh,
remember that being my favorite thing. Like the porridge, I remember I used to like as soon as we were done eating, I would have to go like vomit that up. Like I couldn't do the porridge. I remember the cereal being my favorite part of the day. Um,
cold cereal?
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
frosted and Raisin Bran were like, that always hit. I remember the yogurt, yogurt was good. The flan, still to this day, flan is like my favorite dessert.
Nice.
But yeah, I really struggled with the food. But again, I had a really hard relationship with food as a kid.
Yeah. So you already had a kind of tumultuous relationship with food as it is, so it didn't help.
And forced me to keep eating, just made it really, really hard.
Yeah, did you guys were you guys forced to work kitchen every now and then? Did you guys have to work the kitchen?
I was never forced to work anything, but again, I never made it to upper level, so I wouldn't have
Okay.
been able to anyway.
Okay, were there students that would work a kitchen at Casa?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think only the boys did kitchen. I mean,
Interesting.
like, boys
Okay.
did do kitchen, but it was only boys.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember at Spring Creek, the place I went in Montana. Uh, I think it was like every week we would alternate through the families, like who was working kitchen, and that was like almost everybody would look forward to it because not only would you, unless you were like trying to get your schooling quote unquote, in parentheses, but your schooling done because we didn't know that the credits weren't going to transfer and all of that. If you were more school minded, then you would want to stay in school, so you would prefer to be in school. But so they would alternate, and then every week somebody would get selected to work the kitchen, and then when you work the kitchen, you would get like you could have like so after everybody was served, you would go in the back behind like there was the kitchen and then there was this area like in the back like behind the main dining area that was like the dining area for the people working kitchen, and you could like load up however much food you wanted and fucking
Mm.
then on the cold cereal, the reason I'm saying that is that you would actually get to put sugar in the cold cereal, so it'd actually be like fire cold
Oh
cereal.
yeah, you didn't get to
So
do that.
yeah, I know a lot of the places didn't even allow you to have sugar or anything like that, but I remember that. Yeah.
Like when we had like hamburgers and hot dogs, we got condiments, and
Okay.
you could load up condiments on your stuff, so it would make it like bearable for
Yeah.
me. Like I said, I don't eat stuff like that, so loading it up with like all the stuff, the mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, tomatoes, relish, onions, I'd throw everything on there to make it bearable. Um, I mean, there was some food there that was bearable. But I wasn't a huge fan. There was a fish dish that everybody else seemed to hate, but I was just like, hey, it's fish. I'm eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. If you had to make an estimation of how many people, uh, and maybe you should do an estimation of like when you got back to Casa by the Sea, because the first 2 days it's kind of you're already kind of like mind fucked the whole thing. You're kind of figuring out the whole place and all that, and also you left right after the 2 days. So, if you had to make an estimation, how many people were on the facility when you got back to Casa by the Sea? If you had to make like an estimation, and how many people were there when you left?
I would say, um, I mean, you can't really get an idea because they kept the boys and girls separated. But I would say on the girls' side, a couple hundred, maybe
Okay.
200,
Okay. So it was semi like kind of
probably.
a lot of people
100.
there. Because I would assume that if they had like 200 girls, then I would assume that at least like 150 to 200 guys. You know what I mean? So maybe like, would you say like maybe 500 including staff
Yeah.
in a ballpark? Okay. Okay. And were there any runners from Casa when you were there? Were there any runners from High Impact?
As far as I know, there was only one runner that actually ever made it out
From where?
from Casa.
Okay.
Um, Nobody ever ran from High Impact. That
Yeah,
was
I
not a
didn't
thing.
think so. I didn't think so.
Um, but there were people that tried to run from Casa all the time. It didn't work out for
Yeah.
them. But I believe there was one person that actually made it out, like all the way out from Casa. Made it all the way home, I believe. which is hard to do because you're leaving one country to another. Like that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, you know, it's real close to the border. Casa was, but it's still, you know, you're leaving from one country to another. But yeah, it was really, really hard to run from there. And when somebody tried to run, we would all pay for it dearly. So that,
Yeah.
you know, that sucked.
Do you remember how that person was that during your time there that they escaped? Do you
The one
remember?
that made it, I don't know. He was a boy.
Okay.
Um, I don't know when that happened. I've read about it on our Facebook chat that he actually made it out. I didn't even know that there was one that actually really made it out until after the documentary came out. I went on and found our, you know, our survivor group and, you know, heard stories since then. But I know there was at least 3 or 4 girls that tried to run while I was there. I don't know how many boys tried to run while I was there, but I know we went on lockdown a couple times from the boys' side, and then at least 3 or 4 from the girls' side while I was there. People are
Okay.
always trying to because, you know, it sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I would be very curious to know if that person that went home, because there was like a few people that got away, quote unquote, from Spring Creek, but then the one person that quote unquote got away stole a UPS truck, from what I heard, or a FedEx truck, and they drove across state, like 3 different state lines, went home, and then they got sent right back when they got home. So
Oh, no,
I'm kind of wondering if, hopefully he didn't, but I'm hoping that he didn't get all the way back home, and his parents were like, "Oh, you're going right back." Like,
I'm pretty sure he didn't
unbelievable.
actually go home. I think he got back to the US and just dipped out.
Okay, that would have been smart. That would have been the move. That
Like
definitely.
me, so when I got home, I was still only I had like 6 months before I turned 18
Okay.
home, and I dipped out that day. Ran away. Granted, I ended up in foster care because I got caught by the police in another state. And they called my mom. She was like, you know what, I'm done with her. And they put me in foster care. But
Okay. We're definitely going to get into after, because I definitely want to touch on that, especially since you said you went into foster care. Very interesting. Let's see. Was there any isolation at Casa? Was there any? What were like the worst consequences at High Impact?
so for me, for high impact, like I really struggled with the food. Obviously, you know, the thing with that is if you throw up, you have to eat your vomit. And if you don't eat your vomit, you end up in the cage. And you have to do like these R&R positions. You have to lay with your face up in the rocks, and you end up getting like cuts in your face. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't get up. So you end up, you know, going to the bathroom on yourself because you are in there sometimes for days. Um, and, you know, then Miguel, the guy who ran the place, him and his wife, he really liked to torture the girls. He was pretty sadistic. So he would come and sit on you and like pull your arms and your legs in like a hog type position and hold you there. So like I have a genetic disorder where my joints dislocate at will. They're very loosey goosey already. But when he would do that, he'd pop my shoulders out. And then the one time, that last time I was in the cage is when he broke my leg because he was twisting it. I think that was the worst. The 40-pound bag of sand really sucked too because I ended up carrying that for like 3 weeks, all over not being able to eat my vomit. Because like if it ends up in the sand, sucks to suck, you're eating that sand too. Um, the other thing that really sucked about being at high impact was like you have to exercise for like 2 hours 3 times a day on top of all the running you have to do your laps. And while you're doing all of this, like there's these gigantic spiders, right? I think they're called badge huntsman spiders but they look like they have baby faces on them, and they're super crazy, deadly if they get you. And you're not allowed to kill them. The mamas would tell you, this is their house. Don't you mess with them. That's their house. You're in their house. The other thing too was like, you weren't allowed to look up from the ground. You weren't allowed to look to the side. You had to look at the ground all the time. You weren't allowed to talk. You weren't allowed to speak. You weren't even allowed to like ask permission to do anything unless like it was to go to the bathroom. And even then, you had 30 seconds to pee. You had a minute to go to number 2, and that was twice a day. That's it, twice a day. So if you had to go, suck, you better not. So like that in it itself was torture. Like, say like a helicopter was going by, if they said suelo, you better hit the ground in less than 10 seconds, and then you're getting cut up again. Like, we had so many cuts and scrapes that were getting infected all the time. That in itself is a consequence. If you tried to scratch yourself, like if you had an itch and you tried to scratch it, consequence. If you sneezed without permission, consequence. If you farted, consequence. Like, and then you're losing laps. You're never going home. Like, I know when I first got there, there was a girl who had been there for 6 months and still had 0 laps.
Wow.
Like, crazy.
Unbelievable. And the second part of my question was there any solitary confinement at Casa?
I mean, I'm sure there was. I mean, at least I know that I was basically confined while I was sick with all that infection in my leg. I wasn't kept solitary though. I had 2 upper levels that had to keep an eye on me the whole time. But I wasn't exactly in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think for Casa, they just sent people to high impact.
Okay.
They're like, oh, you're in trouble? High impact. Oh, you're in trouble? High impact. But once high impact closed, they probably had to come up with something else.
Okay. Do you remember how you felt the first time you got put in a cage? And if you do, how did that feel? Like, what were you feeling when it first happened to you?
I thought I was gonna die in there. I honestly felt less than human. I didn't think I'd make it out. And I didn't want to make it out. I wanted to die in there.
Was there any point that you that you attempted suicide when you were in either of these places?
You couldn't.
Okay.
There was no way. They made sure you were 24-hour supervision. And at the level that I was at in Casa, I didn't have access to anything that I could hurt myself with.
Okay.
It was impossible.
Do you think if there had been like a lapse in supervision or something that she might have like actually followed through with something like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I would have.
Was there a certain point that you can point to that you definitely would have probably done it more than another point?
High impact, absolutely. I actually wanted to tear my stitches out by day 3 and pray that the infection took me.
And did
I
you?
didn't
You
want to.
didn't.
I didn't want to complete the program. I didn't want to even try.
How many laps did they give you to start out with?
I'm pretty sure it was 3,000 for Casa. I think it was 2,000 for everybody else, and Casa had 3,000. If you came from Casa, I think it was more.
Okay.
But like I said, I never I never had to complete my laps because I ended up so sick so quick that they had no choice but to send me back.
Okay. And can you walk us through what you remember about the night that Miguel broke your leg? Like what led up to that? How did that happen? What do you remember about it?
So I had already had the bag of sand on me for a couple weeks at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in so much pain. I was still healing from my kidney surgery. Hold on a second. Let me close this window.
Yep. No problem.
I was using an air compressor and it's really loud.
It's all good.
So I had already been with the bag of sand on my back for a couple weeks. I still wasn't fully healed from my surgery. I was in a lot of pain. I was already so skinny. Like when I say I literally look like I came out of a concentration camp, that's exactly what I look like. Nothing but bone. There was not an ounce of fat left on my body. So carrying that weight was next to impossible. And when I see he snapped my leg, like I know he didn't intend to. Like I know it was an accident. But I was that fragile at that point that it just was that easy to snap my leg.
Was it a misstep or was it just the weight, do you think?
Well, he was keeping me in that hog tie position, and he was
Okay.
holding me, and it was just an act. Like I know it was an accident. I know he didn't mean to. Of course, he's sadistic,
Yeah, that's
and
kind of
it
why I'm
was funny. But I know he didn't intentionally snap my leg. He was just holding me in that position, and my leg snapped. Because there was no meat, there was no nothing on my body, and it just snapped. But at that point, like there was no will to survive. I had nothing left. I had nothing left in me. I wanted to lay there and die. There was just nothing left in me. And I'd only been there a couple weeks. I'd only been there 6 weeks.
yeah.
I mean, the girls and the guys that have been there for months and months and months, I don't know how they did it. I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Do you believe that Miguel got off on inflicting pain and torture on people? And was it just him? Were there other people that you felt like got off on it? And what about Casa by the Sea? Were there people that you felt got off on it there?
Absolutely think they all got it. His wife Allie was just as bad. All the mamas were just as bad. No, it's funny because like we don't actually know what any of them look like because we weren't allowed to look at them. I know like Mama OT was one of the mamas at High Impact. I know she was a bigger woman just from like seeing her from like the bottom down. I know Mama Nancy was a very thin woman because we could see like the bottom halves.
Mm-hmm.
Very sadistic women like Mama OT. So when you wash your clothes there, it was like this. So the old washboards, like from the olden times, like
Yeah.
they had like a cement one.
Oh, wow.
And the first time you learn to wash your clothes there, Mama OT would come over and put her hands over your hands. And so your knuckles are trying to hold your clothes, and she would put her hands over your hands and dig your hands into the cement. And you would come out with blood all over your hands. So you're not really washing your clothes, you're staining them with blood. And then for the rest of the time there, your clothes are stained with blood. I mean, granted, it didn't really matter because they ended up, darker than my shirt because, dirt and grossness. But, she's just sadistic. I mean, the chores that they would make us do were like you'd have to take a toothbrush and draw lines in the sand, and they had to be perfect, and you had to pick the rocks out. And then at the end, they would just take the rocks and the sticks and throw them back in there for the next time we did chores. So we'd have to do it all over again. Like they had to enjoy it.
Yeah, no. There's no possible way they didn't enjoy it. And then also, like, yeah, why did you stay? It's fucking crazy. It's crazy.
And then when High Impact was closed, they let Miguel come work at Casa on the boys. Like, I feel so bad for those boys that had to deal with him. Like, he was molesting the boys at High Impact. So, like, I feel bad for the boys at Casa that had to deal with that afterwards. Like, I don't know if he was allowed to keep doing that at Casa, but I know he was doing it at High Impact.
Was there any of that happened to you or that you heard about at either of these places?
I'm sure he probably did it to the girls too. Yeah, I didn't deal with that. He didn't like my attitude. That's part of why I kept getting in trouble, because I would yell at him and tell him, I don't care. Go ahead and punish me. I'm not eating my vomit. I'm not doing it. I don't care. Do what you're going to do. Because I didn't care. I wanted to die at that point. I gave him all kinds of attitude. I just didn't give a shit. But I know nobody else was giving him that kind of attitude, because they would beat you. They would throw you on the ground. I mean, full fist, like, grown man beat the shit out of you. He didn't care. And that was just his thing. He liked to inflict pain.
Yes, a sadistic motherfucker, definitely. What do you remember about when you got pulled from Casa by the Sea? What happened that day?
I was in class, and I remember one of the mamas came in and she was like, put your book down. You're coming with me. And I was like, what did I do? Like, what did I do? Am I in trouble? And they were just like, come with me. And they pulled me to the front of the building and took me out the gate. And I'm like, why am I coming out of the gate? Like, what is happening? And they put me in a car and my bin was there. And I was so confused. I'm like, what is happening? They're like, you're going home. And I was like, no, I'm not going home. You can't make me go home. I had 1 month left to finish my last credit and I would have been graduated. And it was so important to me to graduate, because I would have graduated early. And then I had 8 every course. And all through high school that I was in real school, I had a 4.0. And I had aced every course there. And I was so excited that I was going to be graduated early. Now, little did I know that none of those credits counted, but it was so important to me to just finish. I just wanted to finish. And I was like, no, please, just give me 1 more month. Let me go back in. I just want to finish. I just want to finish. Just please let me go back in and finish. They're like, nope, you're going home. And so I was so mad the whole way home. I remember to drive me back over the border before I could get on the plane in California to be, to go back home to Texas. And I remember being so mad the whole way. I was furious. Not that I was leaving the program, because, fuck the program, hated the program, but I was so mad that they were pulling me before I could finish that last book. Because we did everything. It was like, you read the book and you take 4 tests per book. And that's all our schooling was. You had to read it on your own. You took the test on your own, and then it was done. And I was just so mad about that stupid credit. I just wanted that credit so I could be done. That was it. That's all I cared about. Like, I didn't care about the people there. I didn't care about nothing else. That's all I cared about. Like, those people there made me so miserable. Like, my birthday, I spent 1 birthday there, and they made sure that it was the most miserable birthday. Like, I don't care about those people. I just wanted that stupid credit.
No, I feel that. So you went home?
Yep. I did, for about 6 hours.
Okay.
That's it. I was home for about 6 hours.
Did they try and enforce a life contract on you?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it was crazy because I got in the car. My brother started about, the whole 9/11 thing. And then my mom drove into McDonald's, and I didn't even know what to think about McDonald's. I was like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. I guess they had started eating like regular food while I was gone. Because, like I said, we grew up pescatarian. So I was like, what is this? Why are we here? She was like, well, I figured you'd appreciate something other than what you've been eating. And I'm sure you've been eating other than fish. So, have some McDonald's. And I'm like, I don't want that. I'm good. I don't want anything to eat. I'm still reeling from the fact that you took me away when I just wanted to finish that course. Like, I was still pissed off. And I'm still pissed off from seeing her because I still don't want anything to do with her. Like, I'm mad, super mad at her. And so we go home. Everything that was in my room, every piece of clothing, every CD, every picture, everything that represented me in any way, shape, or form was gone.
Yep.
It was all gone.
Same
And then
happened to me.
yep. And then she slaps this piece of paper down, explaining like what life's gonna be like from here on out. And I looked at her and I'm like, excuse me? Like, you know what you just did to me? And I tried to explain to her what had just happened to me, that high impact, about everything. And she's like, yeah, you're lying. You're lying. None of that happened. You didn't tell me any of that happened to you. You're lying. As usual, you're always lying. Do I need to send you back there? I would, except I ran out of money. I spent all of my life savings trying to save your life. You tried what? Save my life? No, I think you just tried to kill me, actually. Because I almost died over there.
Yeah.
So you wanna talk about what really happened, or you wanna tell yourself these lies?
Right?
Because if you really want to get into things, we can get into things. And we sat there and argued about it for like 2 hours. And I was like, you know what? I don't even have any clothes here, right? She was like, no. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave. She's like, you can't leave. You can't leave. I'm like, you want to bet? And I walked out the front door and haven't seen her since.
Okay. How did the program affect you since you got out, and what have you struggled with the most?
Um, so according to my therapist, I have PTSD worse than most war veterans. I have struggled with agoraphobia quite a bit. Almost every relationship I've ever had has been violent, not on my end. But I tend to find violent relationships every time. I still have many physical issues because I never really healed properly. My back has been pretty much destroyed. High impact did a real number on me. My leg never really healed right. I have struggled with back issues from the way they contorted me in the cage, and that stupid 40-pound bag of sand did a number on my back, which I found out in foster care. And then, of course, I've periodically worked, mostly serving jobs, and just destroyed my body more throughout my life that way. I don't know what they were giving us in Mexico, but there was something they were giving us in Mexico, plus all the water and everything else destroyed my teeth. Granted, all the meds that I've had to take for, my PTSD and everything else didn't help. My anxiety, I have to take anxiety meds every day. Struggle's real. I've had addiction after addiction after addiction.
I was just about to say that.
I'm clean now. I'm doing pretty good, but it's a battle. Been to jail.
Did you use intravenously or smoking?
Did for about 3 months. When I found out I was going to lose my son and go to jail, I kind of went on a bender.
Understandably. Yeah, I got 3.5 years clean off of meth and heroin. I'm on methadone and I smoke weed, but that's it. But, methadone is its own beast, but it's better than being on prescription.
Yeah, I don't really consider weed to be a drug anymore. I consider it to be a lifeline. It helps with my pain. It helps with my seizures. I didn't used to be epileptic, but I am now.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah, fun stuff.
So you went into foster care because you ended up leaving home, correct? After you got back.
I left Texas and I was traveling with friends and we got pulled over for like a tail light or something. And they pulled us out. And so my mom gets married and divorced a lot. And when they pulled me out and I told them my name and age, they were like, well, we need to get hold of your mother. And like I said, I was only there for a couple hours. So when they pulled me out, they asked me for my mother's name. And I'm like, I can give you some names that I know she's had in the past, but I can't tell you for sure what her last name is. I don't know her phone number. I can tell you the address, but I don't know the phone number and I don't know her name for sure. And they thought I was playing with them.
Of course.
I had to explain to them what had just occurred, and they didn't believe me.
Of course not.
Nobody ever believed me because, it wasn't widely known what we were going through back then. So nobody believed anything. And I was like, no, really, you don't understand. This is literally what just happened. I was like, I can give you the address because it was a home that I had lived in for years before going to Casa. I was like, you can send an officer to that address and you can get the information, but I really cannot tell you her last name. I don't know. And they didn't believe me. So I ended up spending the night in the police station while they went and tracked her down. And then they sent me to child services while they dealt with her. My dad wasn't in my life, but they finally got a hold of him as well. He was in Japan. And my dad was like, well, I'm in Japan. Nothing I can do for her. By the time I get back, because I'm stationed over here for another 6 months, by the time I get back, she'll be 18. And my mom was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with her no more. I done spent my whole life savings sending her off to school at this boarding school, which was not a boarding school. Yeah, so I spent my last 6 months of, childhood in foster care. And of course, because our schooling was not real school, they basically told me I wasn't going to graduate. So I said, screw it. And the day I turned 18, which was Christmas, basically I left and ended up going and get my GD because I wasn't playing with them fools no more.
Understandably. What were there any? How was foster care? Because I know that's had its own like horrors and stuff. Did you witness any? Like, how was your experience in foster care?
In 6 months' time, I was in 4 different homes and was raped in every one of them.
Do you?
They're not fun.
Yeah, it's. I believe that they actually have a hand in. I don't even know if I want to say this on the podcast, but I'm just going to say that there's a lot more connections than people probably think, and there's I'm just gonna say that it's definitely tied in with trafficking, and I'm not gonna say what kind of trafficking, but it's tied in with trafficking and pedophilia. So that's all I'm gonna say.
For sure. It's actually been proven that they're responsible for the majority of trafficking in this country.
Yeah,
It's sad.
it's unbelievable. What got you sober? What got you off of hard drugs?
Originally, my kids got me sober. And then I kind of went off the rails. When I got in trouble, for something really stupid. Somebody broke into my house and I defended my property. And in the state that I was at the time, that was not legal. So I ended up having to do 2 years in jail, not prison. But it made me lose my baby. So before I went in, I ran. So I spiraled a little bit before they caught me. And then going in, before I went in, I was agoraphobic for 3 years. So when I found all this out, that I was going to have to go to jail, that I was going to lose my kid, like all these things, that's what sent me to the spiral. That's what lost me my sobriety. Then when I got out, and I found out I was never going to get my kid back, because they forced adoption on me, I spiraled again. And then I just decided that I needed to do better, so that when my son turned 18, he kind of talked me into it, basically. He told me, when I turn 18, Mom, I need you to have your life together so that I can come home to you. And that kind of kicked my butt in gear.
Okay.
But this stupid documentary came out and I almost lost it. I didn't, but I almost lost it. I almost went backwards again. Came real close.
Have you tried explaining it? It's probably not. You probably can't get through to your mom, but have you tried explaining it to either of your parents, or have they watched the program?
So, me and my father kind of tried to have a relationship when my son was born. Um, Things fell off fairly quickly because he is almost a carbon copy of my mother. I understand why they didn't work out as a relationship, but his wife and I are really close. I reached out to them when the program hit, and I asked them to watch it. Um, they told me there was no good that could come from bringing up past trauma that they had nothing to do with.
Sorry to hear that.
They won't watch it. I think that's unfair, because that's one of the things that me and my dad have. It's one of the things that keep us at odds, because he doesn't understand why I am the way I am, why I struggle the way I struggle. And I feel like if he watches this program and really understands, this is really what happened to me. There's a lot of times he'll be like, "Oh, you're just being dramatic. That it couldn't have possibly been that bad." And I feel like if he watched it, he could see I'm not being dramatic. Like, these things really happened. This is what happened to a lot of us. And I was to one of the worst places I could possibly be sent to. And high impacts were the worst of the worst. Not to say that the other places weren't bad, because they all were bad. But I mean, I was held in a dog cage, for crying out loud. I was made to eat my own vomit. Like, I had my bones broken, like, by a man that was sitting on top of me and holding me in a position for hours because I wouldn't eat my own vomit. Like, how degrading can that be? Like, how do you expect that to play out for the rest of my life? I was 16. I had just had my kidney taken out of my body. Like, what do you think that does to a person? Like, I stayed with him right after I think my son was like a year and a half, 2 years old when we moved into his house. He brought me from Texas to Maryland to come stay with him because he wanted to be grandpa. And he got so frustrated all the time because he couldn't understand my night terrors. Like, I have severe, severe night terrors. I have to take sleeping meds and night terror medication and all of these things, and it still doesn't even mask the pure screaming that happens in my sleep. I can't control it.
Yeah.
And he would get so angry and not understand why I scream like that in my sleep. And I tried to explain it to him that I'm dreaming about high impact. I still to this day dream about that place. And there's nothing I can do. No amount of therapy changes it. No amount of meds changes it. It's something that I dream about almost nightly. And he doesn't understand. And I'm like, okay, so watch this thing and maybe you'll get a little glimpse of the things that we were going through. Like, even the documentary doesn't even cover high impact like that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But like, maybe look it up online. See what's really good. And he won't do it. And it's so frustrating to me. Like, it's very frustrating to me.
Understandably,
That people
completely.
just don't want to understand. Like, don't get mad at me for things that I'm going through that I can't control, but then not want to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. If you could go back in a time machine and not go through either of these places, knowing what you know now, would you do it and why?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If I could go back in a time machine, I would run away from home at like 13 and disappear.
Okay. And looking back, what do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away?
Therapy. Like, actual therapy, maybe some love. I didn't know what love was in my home. That wasn't a thing. Nobody said, I love you. Nobody gave hugs. There was no respect in my family unless it was us respecting my mom. Me and my brother as kids, we didn't get that. My mom was incredibly cruel. High impact almost felt normal, honestly. My mom was just about as cruel as Miguel. The bleach and ammonia bucket in the bathroom was my mom, one of her favorite tools. She liked to make mustard gas and stick me in a bathroom. She also liked the countertops in the back of my head. You know, instead of frying pans or chanclas, that was her favorite form of abuse. The back of my head is actually still to this day permanently like dented in many places, because that was her thing. So if I could have actual caring parent, I think my life would be very different.
Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else you want people to know about your experience, or anything that you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
Just don't do it. it will forever change the course of your child's life, and they will be traumatized forever. Even if they don't have an experience like mine, it will change something in their soul forever. They won't be okay. And they will hate you forever for it. They may be able to forgive you at some point, because a lot of kids have forgiven their parents. I won't. I still to this day won't talk to my mother. I will never forgive her. If she dies, I won't visit the grave. I won't care. I never will.
Understandably.
And bad, but like I don't care. And I think that's unfortunate. People are supposed to love their parents and care for them in their old age, and that's how I was raised. I respect elders and care for elders to this day that aren't part of my family, but I won't do that for mine. And that's because of what they did to me. And I feel like parents that decide to send their children to places like this are doomed to that. And if that's what they want for their life, go for it. They want to ruin their children, go for it. But I don't recommend it.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you ever want to do a part 2, if things come up, because they often do, just let me know, reach out, and we'll make a part 2 happen. And if you guys have watched so far in the video, please make sure you leave a like, comment down below, share the video. Share. Let's get this really out there. We want the general public to see this, not just survivors. So let's really get it out there. Let's keep on kicking ass. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Let's keep on kicking ass and keep on pushing those benchmarks further and further ahead of us so we can make more progress. Thank you guys for the continued support, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.